Thailand has floods every year. There were really major floods in Thailand in '88, for example. There were really major floods in '95. So having extremely serious floods every few years is par for the course in Thailand. That said, this is on a much bigger scale than anything we've seen in recent years. It is much more serious, and most crucially of all, it's affecting people in and around Bangkok itself, because typically the barriers keep the worst of the waters out of Bangkok, and it's able to be sort of designated as a provincial problem. It's a problem in some region or regions of the country. This time it's gone right to the heart of the capital city, and an intensely capital city-centric country like Thailand, that has a huge impact economically, because of course so much of the industry, the industrial zones, the foreign factories and so on are in that area right around Bangkok, not so much in the city itself, but in the provinces that circle Bangkok. But also psychologically, because this goes to the core of the Thai state. This is the legitimacy of the Thai state. Can the government, the bureaucracy, the military hold back the waters? And if they can't, that raises questions about what's going on in the political system. Thailand is a country with a strong belief in certain notions of Buddhism, and there will be a lot of people asking themselves, is there any bad karma out there that has brought this calamity upon us after 6 years of political tension and crisis? I'm not suggesting that that's a scientific way of understanding what's going on, but I think psychologically it is important to realize that Thailand really has been in a series of semi-continuous political crises that started around September 2005 and that have never really let up. And just at a point where Yingluck came in and there was this sense of, okay, the two sides can't carry on fighting in the way that they have been. The yellow shirts are fading out a bit. The red shirts have their sort of people in power. Can the two sides do a deal? Is there an understanding? Lots of speculation around closed-door deals that may have gone on in Thailand. And then, just as you think, well, maybe a phase of semi-normality might be about to be ushered in, wham, the waters cascade across the country and into the capital city itself, and everybody throws up their hands in horror and says, what's going on? Who are these people running the country? What are they doing? How can we trust anybody to save us, because we can't even keep the water out of our houses and keep our lives on the road? Yingluck certainly is a political novice. Nevertheless, she did confound her critics and the skeptics during the election campaign by really rising to the occasion, demonstrating that she had a bit of a common touch. She was quite a natural campaigner. She was really ready to get out. She adopted a far more conciliatory and accommodating tone than her predecessors, other key figures in the party, and certainly than her brother and sort of alter ego, Thaksin Shinawatra, who's always lurking in the background. So in that sense, Yingluck has started well and was starting well as a Prime Minister, surprisingly well. The difficulty is really a set of questions, partly about her experience, but partly about the degree of power that she exercises over a lot of government agencies. People talk about the state in Thailand, but actually Thailand's a very messy country in terms of who's really running things. There are a lot of competing power centres, and the existence of those competing power centres tends to come to head in any sort of crisis. And we've seen this abundantly here. Most explicitly, of course, you've got a Democrat who is the governor of Bangkok, Sukhumpan, who has his own ideas about how to keep the waters out of the city, and he's more or less been standing up and contradicting much of what the Prime Minister has been saying about who is in charge of keeping the water out, managing the water around Bangkok. So you've seen a sort of recreation of the oppositional politics in a very, very immediate sense between Yingluck and Sukhumpan. The two sides are back. You know, there was no real grace period, a moment when the two sides set their differences aside. There were symbolic meetings like that of Apisit and Sukhumpan and Yingluck sitting down together, but the tensions between them and the difficulties of any sort of process of reconciliation, and lots of rhetoric about reconciliation. Okay, here's a chance to reconcile, because everybody has a shared interest in people not having their houses washed away and not having their businesses and livelihoods destroyed. And yet it didn't seem that that could really be done. And I don't think this is entirely Yingluck's fault, but nevertheless, it does dent that goodwill that she came in with when she won the election so decisively, and seemed to be presenting herself in a way that even her opponents recognised was a step forward from where the country had been before. The Thaksin period from 2001 to 2006 is in the minds of his supporters, Yingluck's supporters, a period of relative economic growth when the haves were being expanded, where more opportunities were being given to ordinary people to strengthen their economic situation. And Yingluck came in very much with waving a flag saying, once we get back in power, we'll be able to go back to the tone, feel of the Thaksin years, when we'll be putting more money into your pocket, we'll be putting various schemes into place that will benefit ordinary people, particularly people in the north and northeast where the strongholds of the party are. And that's going to be very difficult to afford now, with growth rates being projected downwards and with obviously massive costs involved in the reconstruction process. The second round of questions concerns foreign investors and whether companies such as Japanese car companies who've had to suspend production will be thinking in terms of continuing as though nothing had happened, just drying everything out and dusting it off, or relocating their plants to drier, more upland places within Thailand, or perhaps outside Thailand altogether in the longer term. Because you have to ask yourself, if you were planning to build a big factory in Thailand a few months ago, would you now be looking at those plans again and considering a range of other options? And that's a real danger for a country that's relied very heavily on those kind of investments for a lot of its industrial infrastructure. Of course, Thailand has bounced back from many a calamity in the past, and there is a sort of sense of unreality, I think, amongst a lot of policymakers and opinion formers in Thailand who believe that, don't worry, Thailand is a sort of charmed country, and one way or another, whatever goes wrong, we'll be able to get over it and go back to where we were before. I hope that's true, but this time, Thailand may have pushed its luck a little bit further than it will hold.